Queen Bilkis, aka the Queen of Sheba, is one of the most mysterious queens in all of history. She might be a major player in different religious texts, but no one has ever been sure if she was half Jinn or a human. She ruled an entire empire, faced off with Prophet Sulaiman, and still walked away with a crown. But her story is way more complicated than you'd think. Welcome back to another episode of Secret Archives. Today, we are diving deep into the legendary myth of the fearless and strategic Queen Bilkis, who has rocked the foundation of mythology. Queen Bilkis was so wise and powerful, legends still can't decide if she was human or something way stranger. She ruled a kingdom so rich, her throne was worth more than gold. But when Prophet Sulaiman sent her a message about believing in one God, everything changed. Her faith, her fate, and the secrets about her nature all shifted. But was Bilqis really human? Or did Jinn blood run through her veins, giving her crazy powers? The answer isn't simple either. She goes by different names depending on the source. In Arabic, she's Bilqis. In the Ethiopian tradition, she's Makeda. And in Hebrew, she's just the Queen of Sheba, no first name given. And none was needed, honestly. In the original biblical story, she visited King Solomon with a full-on caravan of gold, spices, and gems. But she wasn't there only to hand out gifts. You see, Solomon had sent her a letter inviting her to submit to God. She was impressed by his wisdom and power, but wanted to test this for herself with riddles. And Solomon's responses were apparently so impressive, she ended up giving him even more treasures before returning to her own kingdom. But the Bible never actually says where this kingdom is, adding to the queen's mystery. Most modern scholars think Sheba was in South Arabia, today's Yemen. There was a powerful kingdom there known as Saba. So far, that checks out. Ancient Sabaeans were known for long-distance trade, especially spices and incense, and their wealth made them legendary. And while South Arabian inscriptions do mention queens, using the word MLKT, there's no direct mention of a Queen of Sheba. This led some historians to argue that she might not even be real. The lack of tombs and inscriptions makes it pretty hard to tell what the real story is. And this story isn't just popular in the Bible. In Jewish tradition, she's seen as someone who brought balsam to Israel, and in some interpretations, even the mother of a future villain, Nebuchadnezzar, who destroyed the temple in Jerusalem. The myth is pretty much the same, but it adds that his epic palace, impressive ceremonies, and the spiritual sacrifices made to God also really had her captivated. After this, she praises Solomon's God and returns home, her respect for him and his faith cemented. Rabbis have actually questioned whether she was a literal queen or just a metaphor for an entire kingdom. Others took things up a notch, claiming Solomon had a child with her. The stores are next level. As a ruler, she was unmatched. She knew how to lead, how to ask for advice, and how to test new ideas. And this was pretty rare in ancient texts, specifically religious ones. Her story is often used in discussions about women's rights and management, showing her as pari of history and religious tradition. In the Islamic tradition, she's known as Bilqis, or the Queen of Saba, an insanely rich kingdom of gold, incense, and architecture in what's now Yemen. Her capital was Marib, the place with one of the earliest known dams in history. That's how ahead they were, and the story is pretty similar to the biblical version. The Quran doesn't name her, but it's got her whole story in detail. She ruled a mighty kingdom, worshipped the sun, and eventually submitted to Sulaiman. In this version, Sulaiman isn't a king, but a prophet who controlled and commanded jinns and could even talk to animals. In fact, they were front and center of his army, alongside lions, tigers, hawks, and even falcons. Even the winds were in this prophet's control, carrying him anywhere instantly. One day, this bird, the hudhud or hoopoe, which understands our speech, comes through and tells him about this queen ruling a massive kingdom, but she worships the sun. Now, Sulaiman wasn't exactly thrilled with this revelation, so he decided to step in and put her on the right path. So he writes her a letter explaining all about one God and asking her to drop the arrogance and submit to Allah's true religion. Bilqis was intrigued, but she wasn't about to change her ways so easily. She talked to her people, weighed her options, and, as in the biblical version, sent all those expensive gifts. But this prophet couldn't be bought. She headed out to meet him, ready to show him her power. She didn't know that this was nothing compared to his. So when she arrives to find her throne brought in by a jinn, she's convinced of his epic powers. Then Sulaiman shows her a palace floor made of super clear crystal. She steps in barefoot. Then Sulaiman explains that it's just ordinary crystal. That's when Bilqis fully gets it. She admits she's wronged herself by worshipping anything but Allah, and she fully submits to God alongside Sulaiman, fully buying into monotheism. Islamic tradition lifts her up as an example of what wisdom, humility, and curiosity can lead to. Now that's real queen behavior. The Quran leaves us there, but some traditions say they even became lovers. This particularly explodes in Ethiopian Christianity, where she's Makeda. According to the Kebra Nagast, an Ethiopian national epic, she did have a child with Solomon. a son named Menelik III. This Menelik would go on to found the Solomonic dynasty in Ethiopia. For centuries, Ethiopian emperors claimed descent from this bloodline, so to them she's not just a legend, but an ancestor. But more than an ancestor, she's been debated as a Jinn herself. Some ancient narrations and scholars floated the idea that one of her parents might have been a Jinn because Bilqis was so incredibly wise, beautiful, and powerful that people thought she must be more than human. Jinn legends were often used to explain extraordinary phenomena or people who seemed not exactly ordinary, but this idea isn't exactly big in mainstream belief. Most scholars and credible sources reject the Jinn parent theory, claiming that Bilqis was a human queen, just a really cool one. The Christian Gospel of Luke brings her up in a prophetic context. It says the Queen of Sheba will stand at the judgment day to condemn the people of her time for ignoring greater wisdom than Solomon's. Archaeologists have uncovered massive temples in Yemen, the Awam and barren temples that were dedicated to the Sabaean god Almaka. Locals have long associated them with the Queen of Sheba. In fact, the barren temple is even nicknamed the Throne of Bilqis. But again, there's no mention of her name, just more speculation. Even trade records show connections between ancient South Arabia and Israel, hinting that Sheba's visit might have been tied to diplomacy and trade. There's even a theory that a Sabaic inscription found in Jerusalem proves this link, but nothing's conclusive. She's even got a place in the Hebrew Bible, which says she tested Solomon with Hidat, aka riddles. Later Jewish texts expand on this. Some say she asked 19 riddles, many of them just clever Bible references. One example was, without movement while alive, it moves when its head is cut off. The answer was a tree that becomes a ship. Bilqis' story carries powerful lessons beyond history. She's the only woman in the Quran explicitly described as a ruler, and her leadership is never criticized. Instead, it's a testament to the strength and wisdom women can bring to society. Today, her story inspires countless discussions and research on the role of women's leadership and active participation in communities. So was she a Jinn or a person? It's honestly hard to tell, but her story clearly meant something to a lot of people. Whether she was a powerful ruler, a symbolic figure, or a bit of both, the Queen of Sheba still lives on in myth, religion, and legend. So what do you think of one of history's most powerful rulers?